This is one of the first basic things you learn about in music production, that's sidechaining. What exactly is sidechaining? Sidechaining is when you duck a sound in response to another sound. So for example, a common use for sidechaining is ducking the bass in response to the kick. So in this channel, we have a bass drum from 909 kit and then a basic sub bass here. Now listen to how the kick and bass play out. You can hear how the bass is just constant and you can barely hear the kick. What you would normally want to do is you want to sidechain the bass to the kick. Now there are a few methods to do this. Everyone has their own way of doing it. I'm going to show you a few ways that you can do that with just Ableton stock plugins. The first method you will learn about is using the compressor to sidechain the bass to the kick. And Ableton Live even has its own sidechain preset that you can just use as is. You can see that the sidechain option is already on and you can just select the kick as the sound that you want to sidechain your bass to, and hear how it sounds now. Now it sounds awful at first, but you're gonna have to adjust some parameters here to make it sound the way that you want. If you click on this part here, you can see what the shape of the ducking looks like. So you probably want to adjust the threshold. Something not infinity. So if we bring it all the way up, then slowly bring it down, you can kind of see and hear how much the bass is getting ducked out. And you'll also want to adjust the attack and release. And you can see how the shape is changing as I move the release and attack. So you can adjust this until the bass sounds the way you want it to. See, it sounds a lot better now. At the basic level, this is how you sidechain the bass. However, if you want to get a little more advanced, because maybe sidechaining to the kick might be too loud and maybe it's ducking too much and it's not making the kind of shape that you want. So then what I would do, and I use this pretty much in almost all of my tracks, is I would make a dedicated sidechain channel here. I put in this 909 core kit. Doesn't matter what kit you use, as long as you have a sound that is very short and sharp. So what I use is a rim shot, something very short so that you can have the most control possible with your sidechaining. The most important part here is that you don't want to actually hear your sidechain channel. So you want to set this to sends only up here. So then you don't actually hear this being played out. Even if you solo the track, you just don't hear it. However, if you go back down to the bass channel here, if I change the sidechain response from kick to sidechain, it's going to look a little different. See how the shape is a lot quicker, smoother. The response is a little cleaner versus if you use the kick, it can get, you can see it could potentially get pretty messy the lower you drag the threshold down. So if you use a sidechain track with a very short sound, then you'll have better control of your sidechaining. You can adjust the threshold and the release and attack. Now Now, a common problem that you'll run into when you're sidechaining a bass like this is you hear that clicking sound. You can usually fix that by using an EQ and just EQ out the high end. Because this is a sub bass anyway, you don't really need that high end. Here. And that usually fixes it. So let's take a look at my new favorite way of sidechaining. I already made a preset for this, so let's dissect it together. So if you have Max for Live, you'll be able to use this. So what I use here is a shaper tool, and I group that and add a utility to it. So what's going on here is that I have this shaper set to quarter note rate and just have this looping, and this shaper is mapped to the utility's gain. So let's hear how that sounds. It's doing a pretty good job here, and you can change the shape of the sidechain any way you want. So if you want a curve like this, you can hold Alt and drag the mouse up and down like this. If you want to have less sidechain effect, drag it up that way. And if you want more of a sidechain effect, more pumping effect, then drag it down like this. My favorite thing about this method is that you can get rid of that clicking sound that you hear. You unsnap, drag the end of this shape just a little bit. You don't need an EQ for this. You can just reshape this a little bit here, and the clicking is gone. Hear how that plays with the kick and bass. To get that nice pumping effect that you'll be looking for if you're sidechaining your bass. Let's try recreating it. So we want to get a shaper tool here. The default shape doesn't exactly fit what we want, and there's a bunch of presets in the bottom that you can click here. This is pretty close to what we want right now. You can just make a point by clicking here and drag it all the way up like that. And you want to click the shaper and do Control G to group it, and you add a utility into that group. So you want to map the shaper. Click the map button and then click on the gain. Now see, this isn't exactly what you want. You need to change the mod option here to remote. You want to set the second parameter to 50% because you don't want the utility to go into the positives. We only want the gain to go down, not go further than what it needs to. So we set that at 50 so that the maximum gain it can go to is 0. And we can just disable the pre-made sidechain and hear how it sounds just as is. See, not bad. But we do want to shape it a little bit. So you can make a curve by holding Alt. I think for Mac it's Command. Yeah, just move the shape of the sidechain, of the shaper I mean, however you want. Get rid of that clicking sound, unsnap, and make a slight curve like that. Or if you're really insane, what you could do is you can automate your sidechain with a utility. So you go into automation mode and just set your points here. And just Control D to duplicate this automation and hear how the bass sounds If you want to sidechain manually for some reason, well, semi-manually, you're doing some sort of automation here. This is another way that you can do it. You can also control the shape of your sidechain this way, kind of like how you do in the shaper tool. Very similar to how you do it in the shaper tool, just in the automation lane instead of a plugin. Just duplicate it for the entire channel. Maybe that's a little too much. You can set the shape like that as well. Duplicate across. Yeah. Like, I don't do it this way, but you can do it this way if you want. I do have to note that the shaper method is really only good for 4-on-the-floor patterns. If you have a more complicated drum pattern, you may want to go with the compressor method. So yeah, these are the ways I like to sidechain with Ableton stock plugins. I'm sure there are a lot of third-party plugins that you can use for sidechaining, but these are the simplest and best ways I think that you can sidechain in Ableton Live. Hope this has been helpful, and thank you for watching.